Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a pretty wild journey, mapping the American timeline from the very birth of the United States all the way to the hard, data-driven realities of 2026. We're going to explore how a nation built on unique and honestly sometimes chaotic historical foundations evolved into the incredibly complex economic and social landscape we're standing in today.
All right, let's kick things off with a quick trivia question. If you think back to your old history classes, you probably feel pretty confident about who the first president of the United States was, right?
Gotcha. It was actually John Hanson. So yes, George Washington was the first president elected under the Constitution. But before that, under the Articles of Confederation, they needed a president of the United States in Congress assembled for a one-year term. John Hanson stepped up first, serving from late 1781 to 1782. In just 12 months, he literally set up the Treasury, established the Foreign Affairs Department, and got all foreign troops out. Washington didn't take office until way later.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. Foundations and historical quirks. 2. America's unique subcultures. 3. The 2026 economic reality. 4. The 2026 housing freeze. And finally, 5. Public opinion in 2026.
All right, part one, foundations and historical quirks. Let's get into it. You know, what's really fascinating is that the groundbreaking 1787 Constitution didn't just pop out of thin air. It actually owes a massive debt to the Iroquois Confederacy. This was a powerful league of 6 indigenous nations, the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora, based around modern-day Ontario, New York, and Pennsylvania. Their framework literally helped inspire the foundations of American democracy. And speaking of those early days, we always picture the Founding Fathers as these perfect stoic marble statues. But reality was way more human. At the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin's mind was sharp, but he was in so much physical pain he could barely walk. So how did he get to the convention hall? He was literally carried there in a sedan chair by 4 inmates from a local Philadelphia jail. You really can't make this stuff up. Now, sticking with the founders, have you ever actually seen a $5,000 bill? James Madison, the father of the Constitution, is right there on it. The U.S. Treasury stopped making these massive notes way back in 1945 after World War II, though they didn't officially stop distributing them until 1969. They're insanely rare, but technically, you could still find one floating around in circulation today. But look, the Constitution is fundamentally a living, breathing document. Just look at how painfully slow the foundational right to vote expanded. Originally, the document left it mostly to white men. It took all the way until 1870 for black men to be included, 1920 for women, and, wildly enough, Native Americans, the very people who helped inspire the Constitution, weren't given the right to vote until 1924. Just let that sink in for a second. Moving right along to Section 2, America's unique subcultures. Fast forward to today, and the American people have organically grown into this wonderfully weird tapestry of everyday subcultures. If you browse internet forums today, you see people passionately identifying with these hyper-specific groups. You've got gearheads waking up at dawn for cars and coffee, kids building out battle robots, and folks dedicating their free time to converting Sprinter vans. And the social dynamics are incredible, ranging from famously chill metalheads to the notoriously intense burners, all the way to the absolutely cutthroat drama of elementary school parent volunteers. It's a vibrant, fascinating mix.
All right, Section 3, the 2026 economic reality.
So how are all those diverse Americans actually faring right now? Well, Morgan Stanley's mid-year report sums up 2026 perfectly in just 4 words: CapEx over consumption. That is their clearest possible signal about what is holding the American economy together right now, and it represents a massive fundamental shift away from our traditional consumer-driven model. What we're experiencing is a completely bifurcated reality. On one side, hyperscaler AI corporate investment is doing all the heavy lifting. We're talking investments expected to cross $1 trillion next year. But on the flip side, the everyday American consumer is absolutely losing steam. Real disposable income growth is stuck at a weak 1.2%, and lower to middle income folks are getting squeezed hard by rising energy costs. The report highlights that economic focus is shifting back to upper income consumers because the top 20% of earners now hold more than 70% of household net worth. The growth projections make this CapEx over consumption story undeniably clear. Overall, U.S. real GDP growth is projected at a moderate 2.3%, but consumer spending is incredibly sluggish, dragging at just 1.8%. I mean, when gas hits $3.60 a gallon, it essentially neutralizes average tax refunds. Meanwhile, business investment, that is skyrocketing, projected to grow by 7% this year alone. So the corporate side is sprinting while the everyday consumer is barely walking. Which brings us directly to Section 4, the 2026 housing freeze.
All of this economic strain is bleeding right into real estate. According to the 2026 Harris poll, a staggering 77% of Americans are effectively refusing to move. They're choosing to stay put and hold on to their current, lower mortgage rates rather than stepping out into a market with much higher rate prices. It has created a profound freeze in the housing market.
And when you dig into the metrics, it's obvious why nobody is budging. 73% of people expect rent to just keep climbing. 70% say starter homes are going to become even harder to find. Over 60% are bracing for higher property taxes this year, and 63% believe hedge funds are going to snatch up even more homes. Everyday Americans are feeling increasingly priced right out of the American dream.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Public Opinion in 2026.
So, how is all this economic and global strain shaping public opinion today? On the geopolitical front, a recent Marquette Law School poll shows a commanding 75% of Americans actually approve of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. The data shows widespread exhaustion with the conflict. 78% of respondents feel the war's goals were never met, and 63% say there weren't even sufficient reasons for the war to begin with. And back home, domestic frustration is palpable. That same poll found a massive 93% of Americans reporting that gas prices are up. That is a huge swing from January, when about half the country thought they were going down. Furthermore, just looking neutrally at the data, only 24% of the public currently approve of former President Trump's handling of inflation, with the numbers showing even his Republican support slipping on that specific issue. When you combine this global fatigue with serious economic strain, it's definitely moving the political needle as we head toward the November elections. Right now, on the generic congressional ballot, Democrats are holding a 4-point lead among registered voters. But interestingly, when you filter that down to likely voters, that lead stretches out to 10 points. We have covered a staggering amount of ground in this explainer today, from Benjamin Franklin hitching a ride in a sedan chair to the hyper-niche subcultures of modern life, all the way into this wild AI-driven, housing-frozen reality we're living in right now in 2026. The Constitution proves the American experiment is designed to evolve. But looking at this deeply divided economy and a really frustrated public, it begs the question, what exactly will the next chapter of this ongoing experiment look like? How is today's hard economic data going to shape tomorrow's history? Thanks so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning the data.